Welcome to the SJ Child Show, where a little bit of knowledge can turn fear into understanding. Enjoy the show. Hello, my fantastic listeners. So nice to have you here today. I want to give a couple special shout outs today. First of all, in my hometown, I had a really fantastic haircut by Miss Teresa this weekend. And I just wanted to give her a shout out for being so wonderful. It's been like 8 years and I just never treat myself. And we went and I got it done and I feel like a whole new person. I'm so excited. So don't ever let me go this long again. Thank you so much, Teresa. Shout out to you. Gave you my podcast card, so hopefully you get this message. I want to give another shout out to Mia and Brenda with Superpower Radio Show on iHeartRadio, an amazing autism show that is about empowering autism. Go take a listen. Enjoy the show. Hi, welcome to the SJ Child Show. I'm really excited to get into this conversation today because, I was just saying to someone, I saw this post that was a newly diagnosed, a mom that just got a diagnosis for her child. Let's go there. And the post was, I feel so alone. I've told my family, like, does it ever get better? And I responded, your family is always going to be your family, but your tribe, your autism tribe, community, and friends that you'll find will be your forever family, forever. And I don't know about you, but that's just the journey I've found in creating relationships and kind of finding supports, resources. And so today I am excited to talk to Danielle Sullivan, and I'm going to let her give an introduction so she can give you all the good stuff. So Danielle, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here. I'm an autistic adult. I run neurodivergent.com, which is a coaching practice for mostly late identified autistic and ADHD and other neurodivergent adults, but we also work with families with parent coaching for families who are trying to get to know their kiddos better, get to know what any diagnosis might mean for them in their lives. And and I have 2 kiddos too, 8 and 10, who are autistic ADHD. So
yeah. And I love that because I'm also late diagnosed. That's it, last year.
A lot of us are. Congratulations. Welcome.
Yeah. And my daughter, in our family, it went our son a decade ago, then dad, then little sister, then me. So
yeah, we had almost the same order. I think it was my son, me, and then dad, and then little sister. Yeah. I had to think about that in different order. Yeah.
But you know what? I can really confess I've never actually spoken to another mom or another wife that's been in the same situation. So pleasure to have you here today.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it's funny. I work with a lot of late identified adult people. And the number of times I've heard, especially from women, like I was caught or I was diagnosed or I looked into it after a kiddo was caught or diagnosed or, so I think there are a lot of us who come to it later and just have felt very alone until you start talking to people. You're like, oh no, I met 20 people this week who are in the same boat. So
it's amazing. This community that I found my whole life wandering around. I kind of likened myself to a unicorn on the outside of all the people, always just wandering and prancing about. And it wasn't until I found this community that I was like, finally, the Legion of Unicorns, right? Yeah. And it's such a beautiful thing. And for us as a family, and I don't know if you've had the same situation, but it was almost like celebratory. We just wanted to celebrate all of us knowing each other better, feeling more integrated as a family. Such a beautiful journey.
Yeah, it's been really positive for all of us. I think that there was a lot of, especially for us as parents, and I don't want to speak for my partner, but I can say for me as a mother, um, you know, I had a lot of difficulty adjusting to being a parent, even though it was something I really wanted. And then having children with different neurotypes and different needs, and sometimes competing needs, was really challenging. Like somebody wants it loud, somebody wants it quiet, somebody wants to move around a lot, somebody's overwhelmed by all the movement. And it was really difficult, but also really stimulated a lot of growth for all of us to stop taking all those things personally and to start figuring out like, okay, what does everybody need to be okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we would have been able to get there if we hadn't had sort of the labels of these identities. Yeah. And I know some people find labels to be constricting. But for us, it's really been kind of liberating to be able to say, well,
I say that all the time.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah.
This is how my brain is. So how can we work with it so that everybody can, get what they need to do? So, or get what they need to be happy. So,
yeah. Oh, it's so important. And, I always say our house looks so different from what society thinks a family should look like, so vastly different. Like my son is right now asleep. His midnight was about 10 a.m. And he just went to bed. So for us, it looks like following each other's biological needs, not following the time frames that society has put down as necessary to eat breakfast, or you have to work this kind of a job that consists of you leaving the house and being gone all the time and coming back. Like we don't function like that. And so, and not to say that isn't a fantastic journey for whoever it might be, but for us, for individuals in this home, not so.
Yeah. I really think you have to let go. And this is for maybe people of any neurotype and not just me as an autistic person, but that for us, a lot of it came down to, our routines and our schedules and the ways we do things should be serving us. We should not be serving them. And so it's like, well, if the normal 9 to 5 work schedule serves you, then do that. But if it doesn't serve you and you have other options, which I know not everybody has, but if you do, or the sleep schedules, it's like, well, if somebody needs to be up at 6 a.m. so that so-and-so can get out of the house on time, okay, fine. But if there's no need to do it that way, then why are you stressing yourself doing it out or doing it that way? And we've had to really rethink a lot of sort of, especially as a stay-at-home parent and now a work-from-home parent, and we homeschool or unschool more more clearly. And so it's really been about figuring out, well, what works best for everybody in terms of what we have for lunch, when we have lunch, all these sort of basic things. You just rethink everything. You're just like, well, this doesn't work for us, so let's not do it anymore.
Yeah. 100% agree. That's what we've done too. We've gone wild. We're living wild over here, wild and free in our own time frames and our lifestyles. But, for those of us, like you said, that show up, I mean, it's natural for me to get tired at 9 o'clock and wake up at 6 o'clock. It's just what my body does. And that works, but I don't see the need to kind of now control the children, in my life to do the same. And it's kind of funny. My 11-year-old, she took herself on her own self-discovery journey over the summer. She broke her leg, unfortunately. I guess this was 2 summers ago. And she had a lot of time to be at home.
Be thinking.
Yes. And so she stayed up. She said, I want to stay up all night long. I'm just going to stay up all night. I was like, okay. But, during the day, when we're all going out and doing things or whatnot. And maybe this wasn't when she broke her leg, because we were going out and doing things and she was going to miss it. Right. But it was about 4 days worth or so. And she finally was just like, I'm lonely. I don't like this. I don't know what to even do. What am I'm done watching these movies, the movies or whatever. And, she was little. It's not like she was watching Disney Channel and stuff, so, but it was great for her to have her own self-discovery, to find her own boundaries.
Yeah.
And I think that it's important that we as parents look at the space we provide our children and allow them to have control in that space to grow their own individualism.
Mhm. Yeah. And that's a lot of what we work on. I think a lot of parents, especially if you're not neurodivergent yourself as a parent, or you're not really familiar with autism, ADHD, whatever, past the stereotypes, parents tend to come in with like a lot of concerns of, will my child ever be able to be independent, go to college, have a girlfriend, whatever it is. And it's like, those are all valid concerns for some clients, but sometimes it's just like your kiddo's going to be fine. Like they're going to be fine. They're just going to take a slightly different path. And I think a lot of parents are just so worried about what their child won't be able to do that they don't give the kiddo space, and even teens space, to like learn, to skill build, to grow confidence, to like do all these things. And you end up with these kind of like very anxious helicopter parents and these kids and teens who feel stifled because no one will let them try anything. And I just think it's so important. I know it's scary, as a parent myself, to give kids space to make mistakes, but it's also like, wouldn't you rather have them make a really bad mistake, like when you're home to support them, and work through it, like when they're 12, as opposed to when they're 14 or 18 or off in school. And, I think there's ways to provide structure and guidance and support that are not like this kind of controlling, you must do 1, 2, 3 in this specific way. And kids need to learn, like your daughter, like you said, they need to learn, they need to be able to experiment and try new things and see what works for them. And if they're not given space, they don't get that. So I'm so glad she got something out of that experience. It sounds really cool. Yeah.
She's really mature. And it's so interesting how autism presents in everybody individually. Oh my gosh. I'm going to use my husband's quote. He had the most amazing quote the other day. There are 186 million people in the world with autism. This is just one story you're hearing. And I love that. It was so gorgeous. Chilling and
good
moving.
Job to him.
I know, right? He's so beautiful. He comes up with all the great stuff. And so I think that it's so important that we start. I'm going to start saying that more, and because I think it's so it gives such a better perspective of how much there is that is being missed, and not, and in that female sense, getting back to where I was trying to get to before, was that presence, or how it presents itself in females. How did you find that it presented for you and your kind of self-reflection of what that looked like?
Sure. So just for some context, I was identified when I was, and I always get this one, it was in my early 30s, and I want to say 32. I'm not really particularly good with numbers, with remembering specific dates and times.
But in my 30s, we can go with that.
Early 30s. So my son had been born. We noticed some like kind of traditional stereotyped boy autism behavior and got him identified. And then the more I researched, like, what does autism actually look like? Because my knowledge wasn't that great. I was like, oh, it's me. It's my family. It's like, hello. And so I did a lot of reflection, and that was right. Kind of the way everything happened. I did a lot of my reflection kind of right before the pandemic started, and then going into the beginning of it. Sorry, something in my eye. So, I did a lot of work, like kind of thinking back. And I think what I came to is I was going to school in like the 90s. And I was just kind of the weird kid. So I knew that I was having trouble, but it was just identified as being sort of the weird, off, slightly odd girl, as opposed to an autistic person. And I think if you looked, if there was a little clone of me in school today, somebody would be like, that is an autistic girl. But at the time, it just wasn't really well known that there were different presentations of autism, much less that there were kind of more stereotypically female presentations of autism. So my challenges were really, I was kind of like what do they call that? The little professor version of autism, where I did great with adults. I could do my schoolwork. I read a ton. I can keep a lot of information in my head and use it to good effort. But I take longer to process what people are telling me. So I have a longer period of silence than average when I'm trying to figure out how to respond. I miss social cues, or don't respond well to people who are like, being sarcastic in a non-obvious way. Like I do better with sarcasm than a lot of other autistic people I've met, but I'm not like the world's best at catching sarcasm, especially if I'm tired or I'm distracted by something. I just won't pick it up. And so, when you think about how teenage girls tend to communicate, especially in like the 90s, and reflective listening wasn't being taught and empathetic communication wasn't being taught in schools. And so I just kind of missed a lot of patterns. And also just from from a sensory standpoint, a somatic standpoint, I have a lot of sensory challenges. I can't handle a lot of textures. I get overwhelmed by sound pretty easily. I get overwhelmed by certain kinds of visual input very easily. I have executive dysfunction challenges. So I could not figure out fashion. I have no visual working memory, could not figure out fashion, don't like makeup particularly because now as an adult, I found some things that kind of work for me, but I still don't wear a lot of makeup because it's like blatantly uncomfortable. Like I can feel it all day. And I'm sure many women don't have that experience, right? But there's just like certain things that I can't do to match that I couldn't do to match other teenage girls. Now I'm an adult, women present in all sorts of ways, right? Like there's lots of reasonable presentations for being a woman in the world. And nobody really looks at you off if you're not wearing lipstick one day, right?
Yeah.
But or like your clothes don't, you have mom vibe clothes instead of like, highly tailored fashionable clothes. But when you're a teenager and you're in these kind of cliquey environments and social acceptance is so important, I really failed all of those tests, just because I couldn't catch all those, things I was being given. I was so focused on just getting through the day and falling over when I got home and then like getting up the next day and doing it again. So yeah, there's my really long answer, but that's how it presented for me. Weird, awkward girl, a couple of special interests. Like I was nice. I got on with people, but sometimes like I would, I think the typical presentations you hear nowadays with girls too is like, they make it fine up till middle school and then they start to fall over. And that's kind of what happened to me is I made it fine through middle school. And then I started having even more social challenges because I just, the ante was raised so high in that context. So, yep.
Wow. Yep. How did your family or, kind of support systems, what did that look like? And did they, were they able to offer you support? Or I know for me, it was unknown, obviously, I guess for you. So I guess that would be kind of a silly question now that I'm reflecting back on that.
I don't think so. It wasn't identified as, a diagnosis. And so I wasn't offered things like speech or OT or whatever, or those kind of therapy models that you would use nowadays. I had parents who really tried to be supportive and to talk things out. And like, we're pretty good parents, but also looking back, it's like very clear that there's some neurodivergence in the family that has not been assessed. And so, and I only bring that up to say that sometimes, especially if you go till your 30s, not identified, like you look back and you're like, oh, the reason I wasn't caught is partly because I am just like my other family members and they weren't caught and they're just like their parents who weren't caught and they're just like their parents who weren't caught, because 50 years ago, if you had a slightly oddball uncle, like who didn't like to talk to people and like had a couple, like spent all his time fixing engines or something, that could be an autistic profile, but it wouldn't read like for the time period as being, as being something you had to diagnose,
institutionalized,
right? Thank
autistic. You. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so the definitions change so much, and there's such wider understanding of what it looks like now that I'm just the first person in my family who happens to have gotten that label. But like, that's not to say it came out of nowhere. So I think it was almost harder for them to have noticed it than if I had been born to a like 100% neurotypical family, because they would have been like, hey, this is weird. They wouldn't have been like, oh no, she's just like Uncle John, whatever.
Yeah, totally.
So, I don't know if that's what happened to you, but that's what I think happened for us.
I haven't ever really thought about it. Now that you say that, I do. I mean, my upbringing was a little different in that my parents were divorced early and I'm an only child. So that made it a little bit isolating. And so I think that me being, withdrawn or quiet, which I normally wasn't anyways. I was pretty much outgoing and word spew more than anything. That's my problem.
Yeah.
That's why this is such a good thing for me. But I think that at one point in my teenage years, my dad was in the military, and so he was going out of town a lot. And so for several months, even maybe a year or two of late high school, it was house sitters and people that I would never have made relationships with anyway. So it was very, I was kind of just on my own. I feel like it was rogue, I was literally just doing my thing since I can remember. And it was fearful. And I did have a lot of anxiety and a lot of misdiagnoses in depression. And I remember one boyfriend saying, "Oh, you must have multiple personality disorder," or what is it? Not borderline personality disorder. Those things. And now that I look back, I think, wow, well, I think what it really came down to was my lack of knowledge of communication and how to do that correctly. Number two was, the not being able to identify myself as a part of a narrow tribe that existed. And so therefore just feeling isolated still. And like once a loner, always a loner kind of a thing, but I'll tell you, when I met my husband and we were great friends before we dated, and then we became this amazing couple, and now almost 20 years later, it has been the most rewarding thing to accept that I have these people that fill my life now. That, I am a part of something, and it is so special. And now it's huge. Now I'm like building a global friendships and relationships, and it's like almost made up for all of lost time.
I have some similarities in that I think I read a statistic, and I'll have to find the source, but that it's autistic women who are late identified autistic women tend to have something like 5 misdiagnoses before we're finally identified as autistic, which reads as accurate to me just from the clients I've worked with. But I know a lot of us, and I'm included in this, were misdiagnosed with, I was misdiagnosed personally with generalized anxiety disorder, depressive disorder. There was one other one. What was it? I can't remember now, but one of the psychiatric ones where I kind of took the results and went, I really don't think this is what's going on, but okay, because you just people weren't looking for autism in women. And so, but then to finally get something, and then to start to meet other people and feel like, oh, okay, I'm not in a room by myself anymore. There's all these other people in here with me, has been so fantastic and rewarding. And I think that, being able to offer my kids a space where they're like supported, and not just supported, but like allowed and strengthened in their potential neurological differences from whatever the outside world is doing is kind of very healing and very, not their job to heal me, but they're doing it anyway kind of thing. Just to have other neurodivergent people around all the time. It's been so great. Yeah.
Oh, I agree. It has been so great. And to feel that space that, at first I felt like, okay, I'm advocating, I'm this powerhouse, and I'm going to put the good fight on for my kids and all of these things. And then when it was for my husband, I was like, okay, I am accommodating this man so much. Like, he doesn't eat in restaurants. So it's been 20 years of no restaurant eating. And fine, I don't care, right? I've eaten enough in my life, but to understand, okay, now I get that. Put the pieces together. It just is really it's really helpful and valuable, I think, for other parents and other people to hear that, like, it's okay to reevaluate what you've been conditioned to know and do, like you had said at the beginning, and start a whole new path of your own desires and your own fulfillment, and really basing your life on that as much as possible. I think it opens up so many opportunities.
Yeah. It's a really important piece of the work we do with clients basically every day, whether they're, any gender, that it's important to know what your values are and kind of start from there, because a lot of the sort of models for how to keep your house, how to parent, how to clean, how to do your yard, how to whatever are taken wholesale from maybe what our parents did or what our teachers taught us or what, we see on TV. And those might be good models. Some of them work, but some of them won't work for you. And you can keep trying to do them and just keep feeling like you're failing, or you can just like say, this is not working and kind of accept that. And it's not a moral failure. If the thing, if the way to cook that your parents taught you doesn't work for you, there's lots of other ways to cook. It's just kind of like being able to recognize that it's not your fault. It's just a piece of being a human on the planet. And then try something new, and let yourself try something new and let yourself tweak and kind of reevaluate and not kind of put every single thing that doesn't work on you as a personal failing, which I think a lot of us are trained to do because we were so alone growing up. It's like when things didn't work, it must be me, right? Like all those times I failed in middle school, it must have been me because the other girls didn't. Like I did something wrong and they started to ostracize. But that's just kind of like what happens when you're of a different culture to the people you are next to. But if you find people in your own culture, you start to realize that it's not you. It's just culture clash. It's just like some people do things one way, some people do it the other way. There's no moral failure in that, So.
And here we are trying to push the idea of we have to be inclusive. We have to have diversity, but we always have. We haven't always been inclusive. I'm not, let me not put those two in the same. But we've always had diversity.
Diversity exists, regardless of whether you see it or not.
And it's embracing it. It's that embracing piece and that intention behind like wanting to be a part of that, or wanting your kids to be a part of that, wanting your clients to be a part of that. Tell us a little bit about neurodiverging and how that came about for you.
Oh, sure. I started the Neurodiverging podcast like a month before the pandemic, which in retrospect was like, how did that work out? But I was really at this place in my own development where I'd been diagnosed for a couple of years. My kid had been diagnosed. I was really struggling at the time as a parent and just looking for parenting resources that came from a neurodivergent perspective, because a lot of the how to parent autistic kids resources are written by neurotypical individuals who are not like autistic themselves. And for kids with a more stereotypical presentation, say, of autism or ADHD. And it's even in the couple of years we've been around, it's changed a ton. So there are better resources now. At the time, I could find nothing. And so I was like, I just want to start this podcast and try to meet some people and build community, and also like create some resources that maybe people can, even if they're not like perfect resources, that they are a starting point for people to reflect off of and build their own from. And the podcast grew a lot more than I was expecting. And we branched out into coaching a couple of years ago. And now we're a coaching practice. We're an online sliding scale practice. We offer virtual services all over the world. And we have several neurodivergent coaches on staff who are all, trained in neurodiversity and also certified coaches in the US and are themselves either autistic or ADHD or whatever other neurotype. And so we try to, support folks with kind of life coaching, skill building, executive function support, ADHD coaching, and then also with parent coaching. If you have a mixed neurotype family and you're just trying to figure out, well, how do I build these systems so that everybody wins,
right?
So that's what we do now. And it's been so fulfilling and fantastic. And just, it's just really important to me to like give back to community and build community and help other people know that you, like you were saying, that no one is alone. Like you feel alone because you just can't see the rest of all of us here. And so, trying to build those communities so that we can see each other and talk to each other and get support from one another is
agreed.
So important. So
and now we have each other. Now we can add to each other's communities.
It's one of the reasons I love podcasts. I'm not actually a very chatty person in real life most of the time, but I just like talking to people who have some experience in common with me, which was not the case to most of the people I sat next to on the bus or went to college with or whatever. So
it's so nice now, isn't it? Just to find all of these amazing people. And last year, I had an event called the 1 in 44 tour. And it was, I don't know if you heard it or saw it on social media, but it was 34 autistic presenters who were celebrities from Love on the Spectrum to, some people that just were just new on their, the scene of advocacy and just really want to have a place to share their story. Mm-hmm. It was so beautiful. It was a 2-day event. And this year, because of the number change and all, we're doing the 1 in 36 mix. So that's our new one.
Really
so
cute.
This year. Yeah, it's going to be great. I'd love to invite you to be a part of it with us with your podcast. Because last year we did live podcasts too.
That would be great.
All autistic podcasts. So it's I love it because it's like such a great way to bring everyone together. In fact, this morning I randomly, I don't even know how this happened. There's a girl, Brittany D'Angelo, and she was on Big Brother, and then she just does a lot of work on social media. And just through a friend, and we talked this morning and recorded. And it's so neat to hear the stories of different autistic women who she was diagnosed at 22 months old. I mean, she said,
That's amazing.
Right? And she says, I don't even know what it's like to not know, to have this separate identity from myself. Mm-hmm. I think that's just so beautiful, and authentic.
So fantastic. Mm-hmm. I'm so glad that some women are getting diagnosed a little earlier. It's been such a gap in the system for such a long time, So that's really fantastic.
Yeah. What do you think we need to do? What are maybe some ideas you have? How do we bridge that gap? How do we fix this? Not catching it in enough time.
I think a lot of it, there's a couple of layers to it, right? First step is just educating people as to what autism looks like, because so many of people are working from, Rain Man, which isn't even based on an autistic person. So it's like, and no fault to those creators, but they didn't know when they made that movie. And then that's just what gets perpetuated, right? Through the culture. So stuff like we're doing, I hope, is helping people learn more about, and just people writing on their blogs and doing their articles on Medium and this kind of any advocacy work, even if it's posting on Instagram about your experience, helps other people know, that autistic people like us exist, right? And if everybody does that a little bit, then we get a lot more diverse representation of autism. And then neurotypical people can learn more about what it looks like. And we can too, right? Because there's so many different presentations. And then from that, hopefully parents can recognize it a little earlier. Doctors can recognize it a little earlier, get more education about it. And then I know on the research front, a lot of folks are working on developing questionnaires and assessment tools that are more that are less stereotypically oriented, right? Because the original tools were really developed for, white American boys under 5. And so if you use those tools on anyone who's not a white American boy under 5, the results aren't as good. And so that excludes a lot of population. And so now that we're developing more knowledge about the variation in the spectrum, more tools will be developed, and hopefully that will help too. So it's just about I think starting from the bottom with the education piece and then working up is really always the way to do it. It just takes a long time, but it's getting better. There's a lot of evidence that it's getting better. So,
my husband and his great quotes, another one he came up with for us is a little bit of knowledge turns fear into understanding.
Yes.
And that's just exactly what it is we need to turn that understanding around and give people the right education and
absolutely
the right representation of what women, girls, and, boys, there's different ideas of what that looks like too. So I think that we're really doing the right work for the betterment of society.
I hope so. And I really do think that I know a lot of people feel like you have to throw 100% of your energy into advocacy to make a difference. And if you have that energy, you can do it. But also just occasionally talking to people in your neighborhood about it, right? Or occasionally going to a PTA meeting or whatever. These little things can make a huge difference for everybody in the whole world community. And so it's just pitch in a little bit as your energy allows, take care of yourself first, but we don't all have to be the next Greta Thunberg or somebody to make a huge difference.
100%.
So
absolutely. It's been so nice getting to know you today. I'm really glad we got to have this discussion. And
thank you so much for inviting me. It's been really awesome. I appreciate it.
I want to stay in contact. So,
Yes.
yeah, you're stuck with me now. No, just
Yay.
joking. It's been great. Tell everybody where we can go to support you, websites, social medias, all of that good stuff.
Sure, thank you. So you can listen to the Neurodiverging podcast wherever you get your podcasts. It's just under Neurodiverging. And then we're also at Neurodiverging on all the social medias, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. And then the website is neurodiverging.com. And we have a blog with articles to help, the podcast transcripts, and then obviously the coaching services. And we do offer some courses too on parenting and on being a newly diagnosed person, just getting your feet on the ground, getting ready with that kind of stuff. So check it out. Always feel free to email me if I can help you with anything. I won't try to sell you stuff. I'll just direct you to resources. And that's at contact@neurodiverging.com. So yeah, happy to help.
Thank you. I love that you said that. I love the same thing. My husband's always after me. Are you helping somebody else? Yes, I am.
Yes.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
As much as I can. Because why not? Why not? It's not hurting me in any way. And
there's enough for everybody.
Yeah.
It's
there's enough for everybody. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time today and taking, the chance to get to know you and discovering, your family. Thanks to them for allowing you to tell their story. So yeah, and we'll definitely be in touch.
Beautiful. Thank you.